So I finally got to see a movie from February that is a romance, dark comedy, horror piece. I will warn you, this is unique, original, and different, but sometimes that originality will make this movie seem a little too weird for some people. This is about a young woman named Holly who is in love with her coworker. Now Rob is a bit moody, he's depressed, he just lost his girlfriend. Well, it doesn't say how long ago he lost his girlfriend, but he lost his girlfriend Nina in a car accident. And Holly wants to be a paramedic, she wants to save lives, and so she wants to help him out of his depression while also being attached to him because she's fallen in love with him, she has a crush on him. She wants to be the one to bring him back to life, so to speak. Well, eventually a relationship blossoms, and when it comes down to the first time that they're actually going to get in bed with each other, bursting out of the mattress itself is his dead girlfriend Nina. However, she's alive, she's dead, she's a living corpse. And so now the three of them have to deal with things and figure out a way to compromise. Now does that sound strange to you or what? It is weird, but it's actually really great. First off, I thought the three central characters were great and they were all acted well. Now this movie isn't really much of a horror film, it's definitely more of a dark comedy and a romance. And it juggles those things really nicely. It just happens to have horror elements such as a living, breathing corpse. And some pretty gory stuff from time to time. Well, not gory as in people getting sliced up or whatnot. More gory as, well, she's a bloody corpse. And so she gets blood out on everything she touches practically. Her movements are really unsettling. I thought she did a really good job. She's really creepy in her movements. There's added sound effects that are just wet and crunchy and just, it sounded like twisted and painful. But deep down, she's still a person that is, well, still in love with Rob. So Nina isn't just simply the antagonist or just the monster in this movie. She's a real person as well as the other two characters. Ultimately, the movie is an obvious metaphor for the loss of a loved one, dealing with it, having to cope, and the struggle to get past that and move on with your own life. It's obvious, but not heavy-handed. If there's one thing the movie does do really right, it is the complications of losing a loved one. Now there is comedy in this movie. There's some things that are obviously comedy, there are things that are more dark comedy, and there's things that are a little absurdly weird, and that's why they're funny and just creepy at the same time. And I thought the movie did a really nice balance between romance, dark comedy, and more horrific elements. To some, it might feel like a jumbled mess of genres, but I thought it blended nicely with the overall story. One of the weird, absurd things I'm mentioning, other than the fact that a corpse comes out of the bed, and it actually is handled really nice and slow, and yeah, the way that they handle that scene is really great. Because the characters don't just start screaming right away, they're in disbelief, and they crawl out of the bed right away, but they're in disbelief and shock and wondering, is this really happening? But anyway, one of the absurd, funny things that happens is the second time they bed, Nina comes out again, and they try to deal with the problem with having her join in. And I'm going to say, that was a little weird at first, but then it makes kind of sense because they're like, oh, well, she's going to be a thing now, so we got to make sure she's appeased, because otherwise, what's the point? Definitely love the rivalry that Nina and Holly have. Like, there's a solution that they figure out, well, maybe we just have to have Rob forget every trace of Nina and then she won't show up. But of course, Nina keeps showing up, and so Holly has to keep cleaning up the mess to try to make sure Rob doesn't see Nina. And some of the scenes with that is really crazy. Like, this movie does some funny things, but some realistic things as well, because whenever Nina shows up, she's all bloodied, right? Everything she touches is bloody. So basically they have to change the sheets and change the mattress pretty much every time she shows up. And so the movie gets into the routine where they are throwing away these sheets every time she shows up.
since you're not around. What am I supposed to do with all the little things we found?
They're a little comical, but also realistic, and something that is appreciative to see in this movie. I did really enjoy this film, but there are a few things that I didn't quite like as much. For one, even though the romance is really good towards the end of the film, before Nina gets into the picture, the romance is a little too awkward for me. Yeah, I understand that it's meant to be awkward, but there's something about it that doesn't feel genuine awkward, it just feels awkward. Like genuine awkward would be something like Anomalisa. The other thing I didn't like too much about this movie is there is a weird style of editing during certain scenes. For some reason, this is just a little too distracting, and I'm sure it's just a style, but there are times when it constantly goes back and forth to something later in the scene and something before in the scene. Let me give you an example. The first time they decide to have sex together, what happens is it keeps jumping back and forth from when they're actually in bed to when they are slowly stripping and slowly getting ready and just, yeah. Now don't get me wrong, things like that have happened before in other movies and they've done better, but the way this one does it, it feels so random and feels like so chopped up that it's really distracting. They do this again when Holly meets Nina's parents. And so they keep going back and forth from the aftermath where she's talking, well, what the heck just happened there, to the awkward stuff that happened during the actual scene. There's like little things like that this happens about 2, maybe 3 times throughout the movie, and it's a little distracting.
I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, well, there's potatoes and peas. It's no bother. I can do an omelette.
I didn't think it would go like that. Dan's writing a novel.
Oh, cool. Is that what you do?
Other than that, I thought Nina Forever was a really great film. But it's not quite 4.5 for me, so I think I'm going to give Nina Forever a solid 4. So have you heard and seen Nina Forever? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment. And if you like this video, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015 and 2016. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.